when my grandparents passed away, my parents decided to let me live in their old house. It was a good arrangement. I was of moving out age, and all I had to do was cover the taxes and monthly expenses. At first, I loved the freedom of living alone. I could have friends over whenever I wanted, and the silence of the house was a welcome change from a lifetime of family noise. But after a few weeks, the solitude began to feel more like loneliness. The house, which had once been so full of life and warmth, felt empty and cavernous. So, I decided to get a companion. I adopted a 2-year-old German shepherd named Rocky, a gentle giant with a calm demeanor. He was named after Rocky Balboa, but his personality was anything but aggressive. He rarely barked unless he felt truly threatened or was wrestling with another dog. I bought him a doggy bed and placed it right next to my own. From then on, I always left my bedroom door open so Rocky could wander down the hall for a drink of water at night if he got thirsty. One night, not long after I adopted him, I was jolted awake by the sound of furious barking. It was coming from outside my room, down the hallway. It was a sharp, frantic bark I had never heard from Rocky before. I groggily climbed out of bed, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, and stumbled down the hall. I opened my eyes, expecting to see a squirrel or a cat on the porch, but what I saw was far more unsettling. Rocky was at the top of the basement stairs, barking maniacally and clawing at the basement door with a desperate fury. His body was tense, and his ears were perked up. I was terrified. I had always relied on my dad to deal with things like this, but now I was alone, and it was on me. I slowly opened the basement door, and Rocky pushed past me, his nose to the ground. I flipped on the lights and followed him, a feeling of dread washing over me. He was silent now, which was even more concerning. I looked around for him, calling his name, and then I saw him. He was standing still, his tail tucked between his legs, looking up at a corner of the room that was blocked by a wall. He looked at me, and his tail slightly raised as if to say, "I'm not going any closer." I took a few hesitant steps towards him, my heart pounding in my chest. I could now see what he was looking at. It was a closet door. Rocky's apparent bout of confidence was obviously short-lived, and he seemed to be back to his calm self. All that was passing through my mind at that moment was, do I dare open this closet door right now? And, or what could be in there? I didn't know Rocky well enough yet to know if he would attack whoever or whatever was in there. I'm still not sure whether I made the right move or not, but instead of opening that closet door, I took Rocky by the collar and walked with him back upstairs. He kept looking back at the corner of the basement until we got to the stairs. I shut the basement door and dragged him back to my bedroom. I shut the bedroom door and went to the kitchen to call my dad. I had to call 3 times before he finally picked up in a groggy voice. I explained the situation and asked him what I should do. He said I should go back down there with a huge knife or some kind of weapon and see what's in the closet. I told him I was too scared to. As I was talking to my dad, I heard a sound from the basement. I put the phone down for a second to listen, and I heard footsteps. They were loud and clear, and they were heading towards the front door. I ran back to my bedroom and told my dad. He told me to hang up the phone and call the cops, and so I did. By the time the cops showed up, whoever was in the house was gone. Unfortunately, I had left a large amount of cash down there by the bar. All of it was gone. The basement window was wide open, so we found the method of entry pretty quickly. It turned out to be a break-in and a burglary, but the fear of someone being in my house still haunts me to this day. I've always had a profound fear of basements. As a kid, the dark, cluttered space beneath my house was a source of endless anxiety. Now at 18, my fear has subsided, but it's still there, a low hum of unease that never quite goes away. On this cold Friday night, I was home alone, playing Fortnite with my friends in the basement. Our biggest TV is down there, so it's where I usually go to play video games. I had my headphones in, completely engrossed in the game when I heard it. A faint thunk came from behind me. I took off my headphones and examined the back of the basement. Our basement is huge but also extremely cluttered. If I wanted to thoroughly examine what was behind me, I would have to get up, but I didn't feel it was necessary. I tried to continue playing, but my focus was gone. I took off the headphones and played without them, wanting to be aware of my surroundings. A few minutes later, I heard a sudden clank. It had a metallic, echoing ring to it. I turned off the system, my heart pounding in my chest. This was an intentional sound made by someone or something. I walked slowly to the back of the basement, a sense of dread washing over me. When I laid eyes on the big metal air vents in the corner, it hit me. That was most likely the source of the sound. I got as close as I felt comfortable, then stopped and just looked at the air vent. A terrible, painful feeling swelled in my stomach, and I felt like the life was literally being drained out of me when I saw a hand reach out from the air vent and start waving me over. Then a deep, raspy voice said, "Come here. I need help." At first, I didn't run. I just gradually stepped backward, my mouth hanging open, looking at the vent. The person's hand gripped the vent and started shaking it aggressively, obviously trying to break it open. I screamed, "I'm calling the cops," but the shaking didn't stop. I did what I said I would. I called the cops and told them to send someone right away. The operator told me to go to a room upstairs with a weapon, lock the door, and hide. I was the most scared I'd ever been in my entire life, and the fear only became worse when I heard the door bust open downstairs. I could hear a maniac screaming at the top of his lungs, "Where are you? I'm gonna kill you." I heard him run up the stairs, taking 2 stairs for every step. My heart was in my throat when he tried the doorknob to the door and started pounding on it so hard I could see the door cave in a little bit. I thought he was going to break the door down. I had to climb out the window. I jumped from the window to the bushes below, and with a stroke of luck, a cop car pulled up in front of my house. I basically ran into the officer's arms, begging them to go inside and get the man. They told me to wait in the police car, which they locked while they both went inside the house with their guns drawn. Not even 5 minutes later, the 2 officers came out, holding the man in cuffs. The man in cuffs took my place in the back seat of the cop car, and for that moment until the cops drove away, he was giving me the most evil, hate-filled stare you could ever imagine. That stare still haunts me. The whole experience still haunts me. I still hang out in the basement occasionally, but nowhere near as much. Growing up, my brother and I spent most of our free time in the basement. It was our kingdom, a dark, cool space filled with our dad's hockey table, a pool table, and a Super Nintendo system. We were usually too busy playing video games to notice anything else, but at some point, a series of strange events started happening. It began with the little things. The first time it happened, my brother and I were playing a racing game on the Super Nintendo. We were so focused on the screen that we didn't notice the noise. The door to the dryer slammed shut. We both called out, "Mom," figuring she'd been in there the whole time without us realizing, but the room was dark and empty. When we realized this, we both ran upstairs screaming for our parents, leaving everything on. Our parents came down to humor us. They probably thought it was just our dumb, childish antics, but the room was empty. Moving along, a few months later, I was awake late one night, walking to the kitchen when I heard the TV downstairs turn on. It was one of those big old box TVs, so it made a distinct clicking sound as it turned on. I called out, "Mom? Dad? Brother?" No one answered. I went to my parents' room to tell them, and they were both upset with me for waking them. My dad went downstairs to turn off the TV, and I remember him telling me, "It's a glitchy TV." There were a couple of other suspicious happenings after that, but the last occurrence was the most horrific. It was a few days before we were going to move to our new house. Everything was already shipped, but our parents were nice and let us keep the TV and video games downstairs until the last few days. My brother and I were once again playing video games. That's when I felt something hit me in the back of the head. I thought it was my brother at first, but then I saw a red ball bouncing on the ground behind the couch we were on. Then, the door to the boiler room slowly shut. My brother and I looked at each other with horrified looks on our faces. Once again, we ran upstairs screaming. Our parents once again went downstairs, but when they came back up, they were strangely silent. They told us to go to our rooms and wait there. A while later, a police car showed up, but our parents wouldn't let us out of our rooms. They wouldn't tell us what had happened until we finally moved. Apparently, my dad had tried to open the boiler room door, but something was holding it shut. He said he felt a strange resistance, as if something or someone were pulling it shut. He was so scared that he called the police. The police didn't find anyone in the house, but my dad was so spooked that he told us what happened. He said he had never felt such a strange resistance before. To this day, I still don't know what to make of what was going on in that basement. I don't believe in ghosts, but I have no other explanation for what we saw. The silence of our parents, the police car, and the strange feeling that something was holding the door shut still haunts me to this day.